that LLMs are making information accessible to individuals, to consumers in new ways. Mobile app user acquisition to get users to download another app is $90 billion.
Yes.
3 times the entire CTV market.
This is Mobile Groove at Possible. So excited to be on the podcast stage. Even more excited because I have Itai Cohen, Chief Strategy Officer at Digital Turbine. Here we are. What a show, right? And what a way to end it, ending it on a high note. How was the show for you, Itai?
It's been amazing. It's a must-attend show for us at this point because we get the opportunity to interact with the ecosystem on multiple levels just by coming here to Possible, and we basically condense a month of work into a couple of days just by being here. So we had this happy hour with MyFitnessPal, and I think that's just one example of how Digital Turbine is a connector of the mobile ecosystem. That's what we really try to bring to the table. And so at a conference like Possible, it's about interacting with the agency and brand space, but then also with the broader ad tech ecosystem and making sure that we are the way for them, the optimal way for them to connect with the mobile app ecosystem. And that's been a lot of what we've been talking to partners about here.
And they should be listening because guess what? Mobile apps matter, but it's not where it should be in the strategy. We'll get to that in a moment because I just want to go back a little bit.
Yeah.
Known about Digital Turbine, watching you for so long, had a great interview last year talking about the opportunities at the intersection, right? Games, commerce, brand. You would think it's a no-brainer,
right?
Because 170 million gamers in the US alone, not seen as the market they are. I like to think of games as a form of media. So that makes it even more relevant to marketers to get their mind around that. But here we are, a year later, we were talking then about what could happen, those possibilities. What have you seen? Where are we now, Itai?
So I think we are seeing progress all the time. The conversation is evolving. And I think if it's through the lens of whether brands want or don't want to buy gaming inventory, for example, I think that obstacle is not at the place that it was a year ago.
Well,
and
good
I
for
think
that.
There's a lot more openness and willingness to engage because there's an appreciation for the scale and diversity of audiences that are available in that form of media. But I think also because it's an ever-evolving ecosystem and things move so fast now with the advent of AI, there's a new flavor that's coming into that conversation. And I think that's yet again an opportunity for apps to play an even more important role in the media mix of a lot of these brands. And so to a large extent, the conversations this year were a direct extension of what we've been talking about last year, but from a point of more progress and a more advanced conversation with a bunch of new topics that we needed to tackle.
Excellent. So an elevated conversation.
Yeah.
And I think at some level, because the place of the app in how we interact has also changed so dramatically. For example, even with your FitnessPal, I want to do something for my well-being, for my body, for my fitness, and it will send me to an app, which I thought was very intriguing. So it's like it might have eaten the lunch of all the web-based information it can scrape, but apps are interesting. That's an opportunity, perhaps even untapped.
That is definitely something that's going to unfold in the coming month, and maybe next year when we talk again, we'll talk about what has changed in that regard. What we're seeing is that LLMs are making information accessible to individuals, to consumers in new ways. Mm-hmm. And then you have to think about what is the resource of that information. And the resource is often the open web. Mm-hmm. That's what's being scraped. That's the way for the LLM to make sense of the world and make that information accessible to the consumer. Apps are not being scraped in the same way. They're not a resource that is being made accessible in a succinct, kind of synthesized way by the LLM. They are being referenced by the LLM. Mm-hmm. So while web properties might be losing traffic because their content is being summarized by an LLM, making it less necessary for the user to actually end up on the web property, app properties are being referenced and users are being sent inside there. So I think we'll see a change in traffic dynamics and scale where apps are actually going to increase in engagement, whereas web is unfortunately going to struggle with engagement due to that new form of how people tap into information.
So go there with me, Itai. That would then indicate that when we talk about a strategy, and some companies, some brands don't even have a mobile strategy per se, but we're going to need like an app strategy or an app ecosystem understanding to tap into that.
Yeah, and I think there are multiple layers to what that app strategy might mean. So first of all, there's this underlying truth of marketing is all about following where eyeballs are. That's where you want to put your brand. And so, okay, just having a high level understanding of industry dynamics and accepting that if open web properties might struggle to get the attention that they used to get, and I'm going to maybe have a unique and new novel advertising opportunity directly on LLMs. That's interesting. That's already happening, but it's also very nascent and it's not going to replicate the same scale or the same formats.
Yeah.
Apps are where there's a lot of scale and it's the same formats and it's the same technology, meaning programmatic, the way that I know how to buy, and I can do that inside of mobile apps. But that's the second layer. There are technical nuances to how you execute on apps and how you measure on apps.
Yes.
And so I think that's maybe historically has been the missing piece with a lot of brands and agencies, is just kind of going a layer deeper into those nuances and understanding that not all SSPs were created equals, not all supply sources were created equal, and what might have been a very efficient supply path for CTV or for web is not as efficient of a supply path when it comes to mobile apps. But if you find the right supply path, the scale is infinite and the opportunity is real.
Because of the repeated interaction with the app, the role the app plays.
The average session length in an average app is far longer than the average time on a page inside of a website. And so you get a lot more of that recurring engagement. You get a lot more of the time and space to actually feature a creative in typically a full screen environment. The historical definition of a premium property for an ad has been based on the brand notoriety of the publisher itself, right? If it's a household name, I want to put my brand next to it. A lot of apps don't necessarily have the same level of brand recognition as those types of premium publishers, but they offer a much more premium environment if you think about how the ad is being displayed. It's full screen, it's audio on, it actually respects the creative.
Yeah.
And so I think, again, there are a lot of interesting nuances and real opportunities, and the scale is already there. If you talk about just how much advertising spend goes into the entire global CTV environment, that's about $30 billion, give or take, which is very significant. There's real money there.
Yes.
Right? And brands are definitely paying attention.
They are.
Mobile apps, just for mobile app user acquisition, so no brand spend, just mobile app user acquisition to get users to download another app is $90 billion.
Yes.
3 times the entire CTV market.
If someone is there looking at that publisher's property, reading it, digesting it, experiencing it, that is a real plus as far as the impact, the targeting. I mean, we're thinking so differently about this. How has premium evolved in that discussion?
I think it's still evolving, and I think it's also a slow-moving evolution, unlike the things that we're seeing with AI, where it's actually challenging the infrastructure or the supply path, and that's why things are moving very quickly. When it comes to more conceptual thinking around how do I actually qualify something as premium for my brand or not, I think what we are seeing is that different people end up in that place through different lenses. Some still follow the, I know that brand, and so I want to be associated with it, which is a very simplistic and straightforward way to think about it.
Yeah.
Some are actually defining premium based on the quality of the ad format and the way to be featured. So audio on, full screen. There are formats that actually create an incentive for the user, some value exchange, where if they watch the ad creative to completion and don't skip after 5 seconds, they get something in return in the app that they're engaging with. And that creates a positive connotation, which to me is a premium experience. And then the third would be data. And how do I find my audience on that given property? If I have a high level of confidence that targeting work and I get good on-target reach, that makes that property premium for me as a brand.
Yes.
And again, that's where I think there are interesting ways to do that in the mobile ecosystem that are not the same in others, and it's still being underutilized today.
Talking to marketers, I did hear the interest. I did hear that context matters. So it wasn't necessarily only the top brands, the top publishers, FT, everyone, totally get it. But there's more openness to looking for the audience where they are engaged, and they are engaged in an app. Non-gaming as well as gaming. Non-gaming is also getting very interesting. So the interest is in there. The engagement is there. What is missing?
Well, one thing that is definitely missing is if you just walk around the huge conference that we have here, you won't see a lot of app developers in
No,
attendance.
you didn't. I
Oh,
noticed that.
very few, right?
Yes.
And the reality of the matter is that brands and apps almost speak two different languages. It's actually part of the right to exist that digital Turbine has, is that
Okay.
we act almost as the translation. We speak app and we speak brand, and we have the infrastructure to connect the two worlds. And I would love to see a reality where more app developers recognize the missed opportunity of making them relevant and available to brands,
Yes.
because they typically think about their business through the lens of acquiring users and then monetizing them with ads, with in-app purchases, with subscriptions, to each their own in terms of the model. But they don't think about, how do I make my audiences not only attractive and available to other user acquisition campaigns within the mobile space, but to brands that don't actually cannibalize on my user base. I can actually maintain the scale. I can deliver a very premium experience that helps with a positive overall app experience. And that requires some work also on the developer side. We do a lot of education on the other side of the equation.
Yeah.
That's not what we do here in this specific conference, because those app developers are not present here.
That's true. We have to bring them in next year.
We do have to try
there
and get
will
them
be
here.
there will be more of them. I know there will be, because the brands I'm talking to are saying, yes, yeah, that is our mass media. We need to look at that. Maybe it will also become a line item on the budget. Who knows?
So that's, I think, is an interesting point about whether it becomes a line item on the budget, because there's also a lot of conversations given the changes around privacy and identity and measurement with regards to media mix modeling.
Yeah.
And I think one angle to just evaluate media mix modeling is my channel definition accurate enough to make optimizing my media mix worthwhile? And what I mean by that
Interesting.
is
Okay.
that if you don't actually have a specific app channel, which most don't, then you kind of check the box on mobile because you say, I buy social. Social is inherently mobile. I buy TikTok, I buy
Yeah.
YouTube, right?
They think it's
some of the most,
They think it's the same.
exactly, it's some of the most most widely used apps in the world. Or I buy search, and search is mobile. I buy web, and web is mobile web for the most part, right? But the reality is that there are these technical nuances to apps, and some even technical benefits to executing in apps, but it requires a level of nuance and specificity that doesn't show up as a distinct budget. And so now what you end up with is, I'm trying to buy mobile, and apps require something a little bit different. And so I just move towards the path of least resistance, and I'm just going to be another YouTube buyer.
Yeah,
Which
that's
is
easiest.
It's great. It's great that it's easy, and there's a lot of scale there, and I don't think anybody should stop doing that. I just think that there's an untapped opportunity that requires a little bit more effort, but the reward is going to be worth it.
See, that's always exciting. Untapped opportunities mean that's a blue ocean. That's a place to succeed. I know what I'm taking away from this conversation. What do you want marketers to be taking away from this conversation, Itai?
I think that what I want marketers to take away is just ask themselves a question about, am I tapping in to some of the most scalable media opportunities out there in the most efficient way possible? And what does efficient actually mean for me? And so I think what we are very kind of capable in doing is meeting each brand or activation partner or agency where they are in that journey, and help kind of complete the rest of the picture and find the most efficient supply path towards that opportunity. But the main ask would be just kind of stop and think about, am I maximizing that opportunity for me and for my brand, for my business? And we can kind of take it from there.
Absolutely. And think app first, right?
Yeah, well,
Just a
ideally,
bit more than
that will be the day.
it will come. It will come.
Thank you for
I
having
look
me.
forward to another one next year. I've done an interview with DT last year, this year, next year. I can't wait to look back on this one and see if we were right.